This week I learned it's a whole lot easier to get advanced reader copies when you know the author. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back, another weekly update, the last of spooky season 2023. So it's been a fun time, guys, but it's time to go ahead and get closer and closer to turning the calendar to November. So, guys, exciting week here, and we are going to talk about it like usual by beginning, like always, we're going to talk about what am I reading? Well, I finished They Thirst by Mr. McCammon. Again, I don't think I want to just repeat everything I said the last couple of weeks. I don't regret reading it or anything like that, but I would say it's definitely kind of closer more to Wolf's Hour, than Swan Song or Boy's Life was for me. Again, I felt like I had a good enough time with it. I can see maybe why it's one of those that he says, he doesn't really recommend it as far as like when it comes to his best books. And I think that the story was fine. The character work was really good. It probably was just too many of them, and it kind of hopped around just way too much. I wish he would have kind of focused on, like 3 or 4 like central characters a lot more. Just felt like it was Andy and then a bunch of people. And it just kind of felt like a little, maybe it got away from a little bit, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and it made the book feel maybe a little longer than it needed to be. But again, a good vampire story is nothing that I can really say was negative. It's just, again, I think Mr. McCammon is just an incredible writer, and he has just set that bar so high with some others in his bibliography. And again, I can grade the book on its own merits, and I think it's worth your time. It's just not going to be one of, my favorite books that I have read here over spooky season. So guys, I got to that point where I was like, look, I think I might have picked the wrong mix of Halloween books this year, because I was like, I think I need something just like a little lighthearted, because I felt like everything, obviously you're dealing with a genre that things are just going to be so dark. And before I started The Ruins, I said, I think I might need a laugh or two. So I called an audible, and instead of starting Blackwater, guys, I went ahead and picked up My Best Friend's Exorcism here by Grady Hendrix, a book I got recommended a long time ago. A viewer actually sent this to me about 2 years ago, and I thought that cover was just so cool. It still is. It's still an awesome cover. And this had one that I had actually on my schedule for January, but I decided, you know what, let me just go ahead and pick it up. I'll talk about Blackwater here in a second and why I'm going to kind of shift that around a little bit. But guys, this was a lot of fun. And what I'll say about this, guys, is it is a lot of fun, but I do think it's kind of been misinterpreted as like this is a horror comedy book. I think there are a lot of that. There's a lot of 80s nostalgia and stuff in there. Obviously, that stuff's really, really fun. But it does go to horrific places. There is some stuff in here that's really, really messed up. And I won't give you the details, but I will be talking about this here on the channel very soon. And I'll get a little more further into that. But I think it does a good balance of, the age nostalgia and just having like the fun tropes and things like that, to actually having a serious storyline going on into it. And a lot of things that are very, very heavy. A lot of themes that I think that everybody can kind of relate to, no matter what generation you're from. But yeah, Gen Xers will go, or they're going to love this book. They're going to love everything about it. They're going to have a great time with it, as I did. And it's up there in the running, guys, for my book of the month, no doubt. Blackwater, Michael McDowell. Here's what I decided to do with that. Since it is 6 volumes, and I was only planning to do just the first volume this month, I think what I decided would make more sense is, since I'm going to be doing sprinkling and horror a lot more over the channel, is I will start with this one in January, and what I plan to do is just do 1 volume per month and kind of just look at it that way. So, January through June, just kind of doing 1 volume. Like I said, because I feel like that's a lot more attainable. And also, it felt really weird committing to doing just 1 of 6 for spooky season. So that was one of the reasons I decided I'm just going to go ahead, call an audible, and I'm going to do My Best Friend's Exorcism and move Blackwater to 2024. But there is a plan for it. So if you're anxious for me to talk about Blackwater, I will still be talking about it on these weekly updates here starting in January. And then I picked up The Ruins, guys. That was going to be my last spooky season read. And I think you can tell I liked it, guys, because I finished it this week. I did finish it. What I'm going to say about that book, guys, is do not eat lunch while you're reading it. Because, guys, that is one of the most quease-inducing. Is that a word? Quease-inducing? It's one of the books that made me the most queasy I've ever been reading a book, because he's just so descriptive with what is going on. There's that whole fade to black, turn the page kind of thing. Scott Smith doesn't do that. He tells you exactly what's going on. And there's a couple of scenes in there that just have me being like, or like Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber. He's like, that's kind of how I felt reading The Ruins. And the thing is, it's a good book, guys. Really good book. Very simple concept. It's one of those where you're not going to get a lot of answers. Really, it is about the horror that is going on with these people that are in a situation that they, honestly, I would be like shaking them, being like, what were you thinking? Getting themselves into that situation. But that's neither here nor there. You can't have a good horror story without some people being put into some bad situations that making some bad decisions might dictate. But yeah, very disturbing book, but very good. Very, very good. And Scott Smith pulls no punches. And let's just say I'm glad I read My Best Friend's Exes before it, because if not, I might have spiraled into a depression like after I read The Girl Next Door. Because, guys, it's a very, very dark book. And again, he pulls no punches whatsoever with that book. So make sure you're in the right place when you read it, because it is very, very dark. To the point to where I was like, look, if the movie is anything like this book, I don't think I can show it to my wife, because she can take, like Saw, she said she likes those movies are fine because she feels like the gore is just like ridiculous. And it's over the top and it looks fake, it looks ridiculous. If I think about something like the degloving scene in Gerald's Game, that messed her up so bad. I'm thinking if they adapt that book very faithfully, I don't know if that's something she could handle. So I basically told us, like we do with the kids, I'm like, let me watch it first and let you know, if you should be watching that movie. So I don't know how faithful the adaptation is, but I do know that some of the stuff in there would probably would be a little too much for my wife. So we will find out. But again, a good book. I would definitely say it's in the consideration for Book of the Month. And that's going to be a tough choice this month, because I got, I think, 4 books now that I would say are in competition for that Book of the Month. So it's going to be an exciting weekend trying to decide which one of those I do want to pick. But another great spooky season. I've gotten to start onto my next stuff here a few days early. But yeah, I'm very, very happy with how spooky season turned out. I do think that I maybe do need to think a little more about, okay, make sure you're not doing like 5 or 6 completely dark, fucked up books. Maybe that might be good for your mood, because, you can get horror without it just being complete, nihilism and just being like leaving you in an awful, awful mood, I think. So, yeah, make sure I balance those things out. That would be what I could do going forward. But again, like I said, I'm going to be sprinkling in a lot more horror during the year going forward. That way I can have some good counter programming to go along with it. So those November reads I was talking about, what am I going to read? I did actually start a couple of things. I am back on the Realm of the Eldlings. I did start Fool's Assassin this morning. Got the first chapter in there. Different approach than I was expecting with this one, but hey, it's cool. Heading into the last trilogy here, it's getting to that point where it's going to start to be bittersweet. Excited to see Fitz again, even though he's much different than the last time I saw him, as you would expect, because the years have gone by. But after Rain Wilds, I'm very, very excited to get back to that part of the Six Duchies, because, yeah, I think that's where my heart's going to end up lying by the end. But this is a trilogy I think that most people either have 1 or 2 in their favorite in the Realm of the Elderlings. So anxious to find out about it. And Philip and I are going to continue along with that and talk about it probably a lot more. I don't have much to say yet, because like I said, just started it this morning, just read the first chapter, and not a ton happened. And I know all the jokes will come up because nothing happens in Robin Hood books. I make that joke as much as anybody else. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited because a lot of people really, really hang their hat on how great the Fitz and the Fool trilogy is. Was very excited, guys. If you've been following me on social media at all, you know about this. Jay Kristoff did send me Empire of the Damned, the advanced reader copy. Now, I joked in the beginning, it's easier to get an advanced reader copy. Oh, look at that. Hit my coffee. It's easy to get an advanced reader copy when you know the author. I don't know Jay personally, but him and I have stayed in constant communication ever since I interviewed him on the channel like 2 years ago. We've stayed in constant communication, usually just talking about music and things like that. It's been really cool to feel like we've established a relationship, to the fact of where he was like, I want to make sure that I get you one of these. Also, barely really gotten into it, but going to be reading that and Realm of the Eldlings at the same time. I feel like that's a good counterbalance. Fantasy with maybe some dark. I don't really know what you call this. What do you call it? I would call it dark fantasy. I've seen some people put it in horror. I don't really know where you put it. Empire of the Vampire has such divisive views that I'm sure a lot of people have their own kind of made up, because everybody says, oh, it's just like so edgy. And I'm like, it is, but it isn't necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. But I loved Empire of the Vampire, and I'm expecting to love this one as well. The way it started off, Very cool. Feels very cool to be back in Day's Death again. But I just can't say thank you enough to Jay Kristoff for making sure that I got one of these, because I know there are not very many copies of this arc being handed out, the physical one, because it's getting harder and harder to get physical arcs. Because, guys, I've already seen that edition right there for sale on eBay, and I'm just like, that's why it's so hard for reviewers to actually get physical arcs, because of just shithills like that. So, and I've already had 2 people message me asking if they could buy it from me. So, no, guys, you cannot. You cannot. So there we are, guys. I'm very, very excited to return to that world, and Jay is just awesome, and I'm excited to get feedback on it. And a lot of people ask me, so are you going to be doing an early review? I don't know what the embargo date is on that yet. I have no idea. But I do know that Jay Kristoff and I are kind of cooking up something to be able to talk again before the release of that book here on the channel. So stay tuned. I'll have more info for you on that in the future. And then me and my kid are going to be starting Son of Neptune. That's book 2 in Heroes of Olympus by Rick Riordan, continuing, because he's very excited because his boy Percy is coming back in this book, and should be fun. But that's really all I've got planned going on for the next week. Obviously, Robin Hobb and Jay Kristoff, they both write some big chunky books, so that's pretty much going to be all I do for the next week plus, I would imagine. How about this week on the channel? Did finally get out that Kindle Scribe review that a lot of you have been asking for. Don't know if it necessarily went the way that you were hoping that it would, because while I laid out the reasons that I think it might work, depending on you, it wasn't really a device for me. There's a reason I haven't used it since I got back from that trip, that I made myself take it on to kind of see if it was something that I would want to sell to anybody else. But for me, the Oasis is still the way to go, and that's why I kind of framed that video the way that I did. I'm like, if you already have a Paperwhite or an Oasis, is this one worth the upgrade? Or if this is your first Kindle device, would this be kind of something you were looking for? So people still depend on me for whatever reason for if they should buy a Kindle version or not. So I hope I answered all your questions in there. I've kind of tried to go through a lot of the comments in there, but most of them seem like I hit all the beats that people were wanting to know about. I think not being able to free write all over the book anywhere that you want is kind of a non-starter for a lot of people, myself included. But again, if you're like a teacher, an educator, if you're a student, or you're an author, or you like to journal a lot, yeah, sure, it might be the device for you. But, are you really wanting to pay that much money just for a Kindle that you can also play Sudoku on? Probably not. Probably not. So I would just say, buyer beware on these things. Just kind of really depends on what you're looking for. Went ahead and talked about those books that I am going to read in November. And the bigger one was where I was saying, like, hey, cool, I had to move Empire of the Damned up because I'm going to be getting a review copy, and then I got it the next day. So that was very, very awesome. So I'm happy that that did show up early. But November is going to be a lot of thick books. So some things, kind of breaking some rules there. Said I wasn't going to be doing any rereads, and I talk about Pillars of the Earth and why I'm going to be rereading that, because I do plan to get into Kingsbridge, the sequels, sometime next year. But I haven't read Pillars of the Earth since 1996. And quite a few things have kind of out of their mind by that point. But all the things I plan to read in November, and maybe some, hey, I just get really, really lucky and I have all this extra time on my hands, because I do have a vacation coming up after Thanksgiving. And this one was one of those where, hey, it's a use it or you're going to lose it kind of thing. So I unexpectedly will have a week off in November, so maybe I can get some of those extra reading plans done in there. And then a standard review, guys. I felt like I hadn't done a standard book review in a while. I do joke and say that, it's Mike's book review, so I'm never going to stop him. But that is the least viewed content on my channel. I talked about Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay, which I liked quite a bit. And I talk about why. Probably one of the most ridiculous cold openings I've ever done. Because I always joke, guys, I'm not funny, like at all. I don't think so. But that opening was funny to me. I don't know if you'll find it that funny. But that's just kind of how I felt reading sections of that book. So it's like, it is a really good book that I liked quite a bit, that also had one of the hardest sections ever in my life I've had to read. And I don't mean hard because it was horrific, as in like hard because it made my eyes want to bleed. It was so painfully bad. But it's amazing that a book that good could have something that had that high of a negative reaction for me. Now, my wife's reading it right now, and she's kind of having the same experience. So she said some of those parts are like reading the transcript of someone's TikTok, So there you go. Take that for what it's worth. But I did like the book quite a bit, and I talk about why in that review. And I do have another review coming next week, so it's exciting times, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about those next week plans. I am going to be doing another book review. This will be a Halloween Day one. I'm going to be dropping the review for My Best Friend's Exorcism because I think that there's plenty that I want to talk about in it and why I think this worked so well for me. It isn't just the reasons that you think. Because I feel like ever since Stranger Things, guys, I got to put that out there. This came out like 3 months before season 1 of Stranger Things. So Grady Hendrix didn't jump on the, we got to do 80s nostalgia horror as a genre like everyone else has done since Stranger Things blew up. But I feel like a lot of the stuff with the 80s, it just got kind of cartoonish. And I'm like, guys, I was there. The 80s were different than now, clearly. But, we weren't cartoon characters like a lot of these 80s nostalgia horror books have tried to do, and just made it just over the top and ridiculous. I feel like there's a good balance there. You have those things, but you have like the things that we talked about in the 80s, not just trying to be ridiculously over the top and be like, hey, remember that one thing in the 80s? Yeah, that was funny, wasn't it? Like naming all the chapters, titles of books and things, or titles of songs, 80s songs and stuff was really, really cool, and it played into the storyline. Thought it was very, very charming. So I want to talk about that a little more in depth, and I talked about book of the month and how hard that's going to be to pick. Well, I will be making that pick next week when I wrap up the month of October and spooky season as a whole. So plenty of things to talk about here because I did read 6 interesting books and I've got some good feedback for all of them and how I would kind of rank them, so to speak. I don't know if I'll actually rank them. I've never done that in a wrap-up video before, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it was a very exciting month. I think I like this spooky season a lot better than last year's, which had a lot of misses. But I think mostly hits this go around. So it's been an exciting month, and we're going to talk about it and wrap it up then. I'm going to get back to post credits on Mike's movie reviews. We kind of fell behind this week just because, guys, it's one of those weeks where we had like something every single night. We had 2 trunk or treats with the kids, where we had some stuff for school. My kids in orchestra, my oldest kid's in orchestra. He had his first concert. We were doing all this home renovation stuff. So it's just like every night had something going on, and we never got around to watching, much less recording anything. But we're going to get on that. We did watch the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which I'll talk about in a TV movie talk here in a second. We watched that last night. So we're going to record a review of Five Nights at Freddy's. We're going to talk about Smile, the movie Smile from 2022, and The Vanishing, the American version from 1993. That's the Kiefer Sutherland, Jeff Bridges one. We're going to kind of talk about those 3 movies as we get post-credits back on schedule. And I'm excited to do it because it's a lot of fun talking about movies. It's nothing I'll ever really get tired of. It's nothing I'll ever quit doing. So, something again, with those, it's so much fun because with my wife and I, it's like that's what we do after every movie anyway. We sit there and kind of like detox and talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, what we'd kind of rate it, and said, hey, why don't we just start recording that? And that is how post-credits was born. So we'll get back to that. I already talked to Philip, and I think he recorded it. I don't know when he's going to release it, but I just want to let you guys know that Philip and I did have a quick little like hour-long conversation just about Realm of the Elderlings, what we've enjoyed so far, and we do the first half is like spoiler free, and then we kind of get into some spoilers in Tawny Man and the Rainwild Chronicles, since that's where we just finished. But we've been reading this together over the course of 2023 here, and we want to kind of just like talk about that as we get into this last trilogy here, and hopefully I can get the panel back together and we can start talking about those series as a whole again. It's just so hard when you had 5 of us, different walks of life, different locations, different availability. Trying to get all 5 of us available at the same time was very, very tough. And but we hopefully can go back to do that. And if we don't, we'll at least try to get like a wrap up for the whole series after we're done. But I don't know when Philip's going to release that video. I would imagine it'd be sometime this week. I'm just glad it wasn't live because I don't want to be caught on the spot. But because every time I talk to Philip, he always talks about something. I'm like, yeah, that's not how I read it at all. But again, ever the gentleman, and just always fun to catch up with the good doctor because great human, just great human. How about some TV and movie talk before I go? We did watch Five Nights at Freddy's last night. It was it went straight to Peacock, so we got to watch it here at the house. My kids are crazy about these games. They love these games so much. Don't really know very much about them. So the kids love them, and it's just kind of bore like a lot of their interest in the horror genre. So I'm encouraging them for that. But we watched the movie. Here's the thing: it's getting completely shredded by critics. And look, I would expect a movie that is based on a video game that is basically showbiz pizza robots coming to life and going crazy and becoming murder robots, right? I don't expect critics to like a movie like that. This takes me back to when Danny and I used to have the Geek Media Core podcast, and people were just completely trash, like critics were trashing the Boss Baby movie, and they just did not understand why it was such a popular phenomenon. It's like, because guys, it wasn't made for you. It wasn't made for people my age. It was made for kids. And it's very clear that Five Nights at Freddy's, Jason Blum, he's smart enough to know, yeah, Blumhouse has usually got this reputation for being like a big old gore fest, right? But this was PG-13. He knows who's going to be buying those tickets, and it is probably preteen kids is probably the age range here that they were kind of going for. And he nailed it, because my kids, they loved it. I don't know about, I can't speak for everybody's kids, but they were all about it the whole time. My 11-year-old was like, oh, this is like this, that's like that. Yes, they did this right. Oh, no, they missed on that. Oh, yeah, they did this, and this. They did this in this game and that. He was excited. You know, he sounded like me watching Dune for the first time. You know, it was basically just going on everything that was right, everything that was wrong, everything they should have done better, everything they really, really hit right. And he's very, very happy with it. You know, he's already watched it a second time. So as someone who doesn't know anything about the games, thought it was fine. It took a little while to get going. I'm glad they used practical effects for the creatures instead of CGI, because I know they had to be tempted with that. But it just made them even more terrifying. Like when you get the yellow bunny come out of the shadows for the first time, it was actually legit like creepy. It was really good. It was really good to see Matthew Lillard again. And I'm pretty sure there was a ghost face kind of an Easter egg in there. There's one part where his character has a knife and does like the clean the blade, and I was like, that had to be like a callback to Ghostface. But really cool. Always cool to see Matthew Lillard again. And Peeta from the Hunger Games. I thought that guy was just going to kind of fall into the abyss after Hunger Games, but he's still getting roles. So good for him. So I think, like, on your own, I don't know necessarily, depending on your age, if that would be a movie for you if you haven't played the games or anything. But if you've got, you know, younger kids, I think it's a good family Halloween movie that everyone can kind of have a good time with it. So my kids are 8 and 11. They love the game, so they did enjoy the movie quite a bit. So there we are. We got a trailer for Season 4 of For All Mankind, the Apple original series. Guys, you don't know, I love this series. It plays with the idea of if the space race hadn't ended. What it does is Russia got to the moon before the United States, and it created a ultra super crazy competition between the two. Just the race. So the space race didn't end, the space race accelerated. So we basically just have like completely alternate history where space is the thing for the entire world. And this one's going into, I think they went over about 35 years of history now. So we're in the year 2003 on this show now, and we're talking about colonizing Mars. And it looks really, really awesome, guys. I mean, this trailer, the show starts on November 10th. Fantastic series, guys. If you haven't watched it, you can run through all 3 seasons really quick. It's such a great show. They got some new people coming on here, because you think now the show has taken a course of about 35 years of history now. So your lead characters, this might be the last season for them. And they've aged them up really well. And I'm very, very happy with it. And this is Ronald D. Moore, the guy that did Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek The Next Generation. This guy is awesome. Deep Space Nine. He tells really great stories. He's doing Outlander as well. So Ronald D. Moore tells great stories with great characters. And that's what makes it cool. And he just shows, guys, that space, it don't mess around. Space can be scary. And lots of crazy things do happen on it. So, yeah, I'm very excited for this to return. This would be, without a doubt, a top 5 show that's ongoing for me right now. And I'm super, super excited. And Apple TV, guys, it's underrated. It's underrated. They focus on quality over quantity. And I think that all their shows that I've watched have at least been watchable. And some of them are just spectacular. And For All Mankind is one of them, and this new trailer looks very, very exciting. Cannot wait. Before I go, real quick, gaming talk. Spider-Man 2, been playing that with my kids. It's been pretty good. I don't really have too many complaints outside of Mary Jane all of a sudden looking like Ron Weasley. I don't know why they made that character choice, but it didn't really ruin the game. I know everybody complains about the Mary Jane stealth missions from the first Spider-Man game. Well, hey, they got him again, and now apparently she's John Wick. But, outside of that, it's been really cool. I think they're doing a great job in balancing the playtime between Peter and Miles, because I'm a big time Peter guy. My kid really likes both, but they're younger. They're kind of leaning towards Miles, obviously, and it's done a good job of balancing between those two and giving them a good storyline that's convincing why these two Spider-Mans will be working together at this stage in their life. So it's pretty well done. I'm very, very happy with the storytelling. The action scenes are just incredible. Like the opening one where you're fighting Sandman is just like cinema quality. It's just so fun. But when I was younger, guys, all I wanted was a Spider-Man game where you could just swing around the city. Now you can do that and so much more. And they got the web wings now, so you can basically like fly around the city. It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool game. And like I said, outside of a couple of nitpicks, like I just said, I don't have any problems with the game, but all the storylines pretty cool. I'm not really wild about symbiote storylines, Venom, without Eddie Brock, and they are doing that. But again, it's still pretty cool because I've read plenty of good Spider-Man comics where, the symbiote had nothing to do with Eddie Brock, and it was still pretty cool. So very, very happy so far. Kraven is a villain that doesn't get a lot of attention outside of major Spider-Man fans. People don't really talk about him. So I'm glad they kind of gave him the spotlight this go around. It's been very, very cool. So another winner there. If you guys have a PS5, make sure you pick up Spider-Man 2. It's already sold a few million, so I'm sure that they're doing just fine. You've probably already played it if you have a PS5. But if you've been on the edge, I say, check it out. There are some things that I don't like, but it's like 9-1 super positive. So another really cool Spider-Man game. And that's about all I can ask for. Is a good treatment for my favorite superheroes to have some really, really good games. And probably much better than the movies are at this point. So, guys, that was my week. What's your week looking like? Sorry, it's a little late today. I had a live stream this morning, and then I had a appointment, and it's some things that just kind of got in the way. So real life does continue to get in the way. But you know what? I love doing these weekly updates, so I will always do them, even if it's late Saturday or maybe early Sunday. I don't know when this is actually going up. We'll find out, guys. Let me know when you are watching it. But drop in the comments, guys. Let me know what you are up to this week. Let me know what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're listening, what you are playing. These are things I always love to hear about down below. So hit me then, and I will talk to you there.